We are following breaking news out of the Middle East. Iran says it is suspending peace talks with the United States over Israel's recent attacks on Lebanon and Gaza. This, according to Iranian state media. Tehran also threatening to continue blocking the Strait of Hormuz. That announcement sending gas prices soaring more than 8% so far today as the fighting there continues. Just this morning, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announcing a new round of strikes on the southern suburbs of Beirut, where the IDF expanded its ground operations over the weekend. But hostilities have also escalated over the last few days between directly Iran and the United States. The U.S. military says it intercepted 2 Iranian ballistic missiles targeting American forces based in Kuwait. NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba has been tracking all of this. She joins us now from the North Lawn of the White House. Monica, prior to this announcement, President Trump was reportedly editing a framework for a new deal with Iran, right? So we just heard from the president about these halted talks. What did he say?
Yeah, my colleague Garrett Haake, Sam, just got off the phone with President Trump a short time ago and asked him to respond to these reports from Iranian state media that they have halted their negotiations. And President Trump told Garrett that this was sort of news to him, that this is not something that had been formally or directly communicated to him at this point. But if that's the case, he says that that is fine, that the U.S. will continue to wait Iran out potentially here. But he also told Garrett that essentially that doesn't mean that U.S. major combat military operations are going to resume. He said, it doesn't mean we're going to start dropping bombs over there. We'll just go silent. We'll keep the blockade, referencing that naval blockade that has been in place to try to help some of those ships and vessels be able to get through the Strait of Hormuz, which is a critical component to all of this. But this just raises a lot of questions, Sam, about what has happened over the last couple of days. Friday, there was supposed to be that key situation room meeting where, according to the president himself, he was going to make a final determination on this potential tentative framework. But now we are still in this holding pattern.
Right. And it's a framework, Monica. It's a memorandum of understanding. We're not talking about a permanent deal here, right? We're just trying to move the football down the field. And I guess President Trump had previously said, certainly many times, that Iran must never have a nuclear weapon. There's also, of course, the conversation of reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The entire global economy has been upended. How do those factors play into this stalemate?
They're absolutely critical. I mean, those are some of the thorniest issues, and dealing with the enriched uranium as well, that, again, have not been ironed out. And this memorandum of understanding, if there was going to be some agreement, we understand that over the last couple of days, the president was going to potentially give his final sign-off, but they were also waiting for senior Iranian leadership to do the same. And according to officials over the weekend, there really may be a delay in communications here. So they were going to have to wait a couple of days. But Iran today saying that they've halted these talks potentially could also just be a bargaining strategy, could just be a mechanism in that regard. But those other 2 issues that you mentioned, specifically the Strait of Hormuz and this nuclear weapons program, again, none of that has been solved yet. And we're not even at the part where they have sat down and agreed to have talks about the more complicated talks.
And they are intractable issues at that. Monica Alba from D.C., thank you so much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.